They say the smallest cracks are the ones that destroy the dam. You don't notice them at first. Not when life is moving fast, when work is busy, when your marriage has slipped into that quiet, unspoken rhythm of familiarity and fatigue. But once you see the crack, once you actually notice it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to not knowing. That's what it was like for me the day we left for the coast. I had planned the trip weeks in advance. Washington's rugged coastline had always been on our list: misty mornings, driftwood beaches, and no cell service. Just the two of us. I thought it might be the reset we needed. Brenda had been distant lately, distracted, jumpy, always on her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told myself she was just stressed. I was stressed. We both were. People grow apart sometimes, I thought. All they need is space and effort. I made the effort. The space? That came whether I wanted it or not. We arrived early at the airport that morning, still wrapped in that awkward silence couples use to avoid confronting real problems. I was lugging her carry-on because it made her happy, those little acts of service she used to smile at. She said she needed to find a juice bar near our gate. I offered to go with her, but she said no. You look tired, she added with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Just sit down. I'll be back. So I sat for about 10 minutes. Then I got restless, like I always do when I'm trying not to overthink something. I wandered. Thought maybe I'd grab her a muffin from this cafe I remembered from our last trip. She joked about how airport food was one of her guilty pleasures. Blueberry muffins, to be exact. So I figured I'd surprise her with one, show her I was still paying attention even when she seemed a million miles away. That's when I saw her. There was this corner cafe tucked between two souvenir shops, quieter than the food court chaos. And there she was, sitting at a two-top by the window, laughing. Not scrolling. Not sipping juice. Laughing. Across from her was a man I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, maybe early 40s. Tall. Confident posture. Casual blazer, no tie, the kind of look that says I care, but not too much. He leaned in like they were mid-conversation and her body matched his, angled forward, eyes lit in a way I hadn't seen in months. It wasn't just the smile, it was her entire posture, the ease in her shoulders, the way her hand grazed his wrist when she reached for her cup. Then she kissed him. Not on the lips, but not like you'd kiss someone you barely knew. On the cheek, close to his mouth, with a lingering softness that turned my stomach. And the way he smiled after, it wasn't surprise. It was routine. Familiar. My heart didn't break in that moment. Not the way I would have expected. It just stopped. Froze, like my entire body had to pause to process what it was seeing. And then she saw me. It took her a second. Her eyes flicked around the room and landed on mine, and in an instant, the color drained from her face. I saw her pull away, subtly but sharply. Like she had just remembered where she was supposed to be and with whom. She stood up quickly, smoothing her blouse with a nervous laugh that didn't match the joy she just had on her face seconds ago. Nathan, she said, like we'd bumped into each other on accident. You weren't supposed to be looking for me yet. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked at her. This is Kyle, she said too fast, gesturing toward the man who stood up with a calm that made me want to punch a wall. He's a friend. Well, not just a friend, he used to be a colleague from my DC days. You remember when I was consulting for that urban design firm? We worked on that green infrastructure project. I nodded because my throat was tight and I didn't trust my voice. I shook his hand automatically. His grip was firm, but his expression was neutral. He didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. And that, more than anything, told me everything I needed to know. Brenda kept talking. Words like coincidence, so random, and just catching up spilled out in a jumbled narrative that barely hung together. She touched my arm too much, like she was trying to recalibrate her body language. Like I hadn't already seen what I'd seen. I haven't seen him in years, she said with that careful tone people use when they're building lies mid-sentence. He's got a layover here. Small world, right? Small, I said. My voice finally worked, but it felt like gravel in my throat. We were just talking about that old office drama, she continued. Remember me telling you about that architect who got fired over the parking garage project? I didn't remember. Or maybe I did, but it didn't matter. None of it mattered. Kyle said nothing. He nodded politely like this whole thing was totally normal. And maybe to them it was. I told him we were headed to the coast, she said, now clinging to this conversation like it was a life raft. Anyway, we should probably get going. Our gate's boarding soon, right? I didn't answer. I just walked. She caught up with me in the terminal, hurrying beside me, asking if I was okay, saying again how random it was that he was here, that it wasn't what it looked like. She kept saying that part, it's not what it looked like. Over and over. But here's the thing, it was exactly what it looked like. And nothing she said afterward could undo the clarity of that moment. We boarded our flight 30 minutes later. She fell asleep with her headphones in before we even took off, arms folded, her body turned away from me. I stared out the window for the entire flight, watching clouds drift across a gray-blue sky that felt too calm for what was happening inside me. I didn't sleep, didn't close my eyes once, because I knew that if I did, I'd see them again, laughing in the corner of that cafe, her hand brushing his, her lips pressing to his cheek. That moment rewrote everything. It took the 1,000 small doubts I'd filed away in the back of my mind, the late nights, the long showers, the strange new passwords, and gave them context. And the worst part? She didn't even look guilty. She looked inconvenienced. Like I just caught her in the middle of something she wasn't ready to explain, not something she was ashamed of. And that realization? That was the first sign of collapse. After we landed in Seattle, Brenda acted like nothing had happened. She was suddenly chatty again, commenting on the rental car's terrible Bluetooth, asking if I remembered the last time we were in the Pacific Northwest. She even cracked a joke about the overpriced trail mix in the airport. I nodded when I needed to, answered when I had to, but mostly I just drove, one hand on the wheel, the other clenched around the same question I kept asking myself since that morning. How long had she been lying to me? And more terrifying, how had I missed it? We reached the cabin by dusk. It sat nestled between evergreens and fog, the kind of place that used to feel like home to us. Now it felt like a stage, and neither of us knew the script. She disappeared inside with her overnight bag while I unloaded the rest. I could hear her humming. Like we hadn't just had the most uncomfortable flight of our marriage. Like that airport moment had never happened. But I couldn't shake it. Not anymore. Not after what I saw. And the longer I sat with it, the more the cracks in our life started to show themselves retroactively. Like how she'd asked for space a few months ago after one of our more ordinary disagreements about dinner. That word stuck with me now, space. Not time. Not a break. Space. Like I was crowding her. Like my presence had become some kind of burden she was obligated to tolerate. At the time, I chalked it up to work stress. She had a big client in Oregon who was keeping her busy. She was traveling more, working late, taking conference calls at odd hours. I let it go. I didn't push. I wanted to be the supportive husband. But then came the runs. Long, unexplained runs. Always late at night. Never with her phone. That was weird. Brenda was attached to her phone like it was oxygen. She once panicked when she left it in an Uber for 40 minutes. And now she was leaving it behind voluntarily? For evening jogs that sometimes lasted an hour and a half? Then came the perfume. A new scent I didn't recognize. It lingered on her scarves, in the hallway, in the laundry. Not her usual light citrus blend, something warmer, heavier. Exotic. I asked her about it once and she laughed and said her coworker gave her a sample bottle. Just trying something new, she said. That's what she kept saying about everything now that I think about it. Trying something new. New dresses appeared, high-end ones with tags from boutiques I'd never heard her mention. When I asked, she said she got them on sale. Or that she had a coupon. Or that she bought them for work events that kept getting canceled at the last minute. But I never saw receipts. Never saw the dresses again after she wore them out. The biggest red flag? She changed her passwords. We'd always had an unspoken openness about that kind of thing. Not because we spied on each other, but because we never had a reason to hide. We had access to each other's phones, laptops, even bank logins. We ran a small design business together. Shared everything until one day I couldn't log into our shared calendar. The password had changed. When I asked her about it, she shrugged and said the app forced her to update it. Then quickly added, "I'll send it to you later." She never did. I let it slide. Then there was the hotel key card. It was buried in the glove compartment of her car, sandwiched between expired coupons and a lint-covered chapstick. Fell out when I was looking for the tire gauge. No logo, just that generic matte white with a magnetic strip. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't belong to any hotel we'd been to together. When I asked her, casually, if she'd stayed at a hotel recently, for a conference or business travel, she looked confused. Then said, "Oh, probably from that Portland overnight. The one with the solar expo." She waved it off like it meant nothing. But I remembered that trip. It was booked last minute. She left a day early and came back a day late. Said the meetings got shifted around. I didn't question it at the time. Looking back, I see all of it now. The patterns. The excuses. The way she was slowly, methodically carving a separate life out of our shared one. A secret room with walls I wasn't allowed to enter. And what scared me most wasn't just the deceit. It was how easily I let it happen. I'd been so caught up in trying to maintain normalcy that I'd become blind to how abnormal things had become. In our first year of marriage, she used to leave me sticky notes on the bathroom mirror with little inside jokes or random reminders of love. The last time I found one? At least 2 years ago. When I pointed that out once, she said she'd switched to texting. But those had changed too. Her messages had become brief, robotic. Be home late. Meeting ran long. Client lunch. Don't wait up. Call you tomorrow if I get in late. It wasn't just what she said. It was what she no longer said. No more miss you. No more can't wait to see you. No more love you. That felt genuine. I started to feel like a placeholder. A permanent fixture in the house who was too familiar to notice fading wallpaper. The irony? I kept telling myself I was overthinking things. I even confided in a friend a few weeks back. Told him Brenda had been off lately. He asked if I thought she might be cheating. I laughed. Not because the idea was funny, but because I couldn't wrap my head around it. Brenda, I said. No, she's just overwhelmed. She gets like this when she's got too much on her plate. Turns out I was the plate she'd been slowly clearing off. That first night at the cabin, she sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, sipping wine like we used to. I stayed inside, pretending to read. I watched her through the window. The way she tilted her head at the moon. The way she texted someone with a half-smile she never gave me anymore. When she came back in, she slid her phone into her back pocket too quickly. Who was that? I asked, forcing my voice to stay neutral. She blinked. Just Rachel from the office, she said without missing a beat. Asking about a design file. There was no Rachel at her office. Or if there was, Brenda had never mentioned her before. I didn't push. I nodded. I even smiled a little. Because by then I knew. I didn't have the proof yet. But I had the truth. And they aren't the same. One is something you feel. The other is something you show. And soon I'd have both. I once read somewhere that betrayal doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in. Like a slow leak under the floorboards, warping everything from beneath until one day it gives out and you're standing in the wreckage, wondering how you missed it. That's exactly how I felt the day I got the photos. But let me back up. When we got home from the coast, I tried to pretend we were okay. Or at least that we could still be okay. We unpacked, restocked the fridge, even had dinner with her parents the following weekend. Brenda was all smiles. The picture of grace and poise, laughing at her dad's old jokes and pouring her mother's wine like nothing had ever changed. But I had. Something inside me had shifted. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating right. I stopped listening to music in the car. Every quiet moment felt like it carried a hum of dread. One night I sat in the garage long after Brenda went to bed. Engine off, lights out, phone in my hand. I wasn't texting anyone. I wasn't checking sports scores. I was staring at the contact information for a private investigator a coworker once mentioned in passing. I had laughed at the idea then. That's for soap operas, I'd said. But now it felt like the only path to sanity. I needed truth, not speculation, not instinct. Truth. Facts I could hold in my hand. Something indisputable. So I made the call. His name was Alan. Retired cop. Direct but not unkind. I explained the situation, left out the more emotional parts, focused on Brenda's erratic behavior, the things I'd noticed. He didn't judge, just asked for details. Her work schedule, travel habits, photos, known associates. I gave him everything I had. This won't take long, he said. But it might not be easy to look at. He was right. 5 days later, Alan texted me. You'll want to see this in person. We met at a coffee shop 20 minutes from my house. The kind of neutral location where people quietly ruin each other's lives without anyone noticing. Alan wore a windbreaker and carried a plain manila envelope. No drama, no showmanship, just truth. He slid it across the table. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. The first photo was grainy but clear enough. Brenda, walking into the lobby of a downtown hotel I recognized instantly. Not one of the chains either. Boutique. Upscale. The kind of place you go to be seen, or to make sure no one sees you at all. Right behind her, Kyle. The same man from the airport cafe. The second photo was time-stamped 2 hours later. They were coming out of the restaurant connected to the hotel. Brenda's hand rested on his arm like it belonged there. She was laughing, head back, mouth open, eyes locked on him like he was the most interesting man in the universe. More photos followed. Walking down the corridor, leaning in close in the elevator, him brushing her hair back as they stood in front of their hotel room door. And then, God help me, the door opening. Them entering. Together. Alan said nothing. He didn't have to. I flipped through the photos slowly, deliberately, like each image deserved a moment of silence. Every one of them cut deeper than the last. I was holding proof. Cold, hard evidence that the woman I'd built a life with had been living another one behind my back. The worst photo wasn't even the most incriminating. It was one taken from a distance through the hotel's outdoor dining patio. Brenda and Kyle were sitting side by side, not across from each other. His arm draped along the back of her chair. Her head rested lightly against his shoulder. They weren't talking. They weren't laughing. They just sat there, comfortable, familiar, as if this wasn't new, as if they'd done this before. Alan spoke then, gently. That night wasn't an isolated thing. We've got records of 3 other visits to the same hotel. Different weeks. Same routine. She checks in under her maiden name. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. She what? Clever move, he said. Makes it harder to trace on booking systems. I sat back in the chair, suddenly nauseous. All this time I'd been doubting myself, second-guessing, gaslighting my own instincts. Meanwhile, she'd been running logistics like a seasoned affair coordinator. Alan continued. Also found a few receipts charged to your business account. Meals, wine, parking. Looks like they've been treating themselves. On our business card? He nodded. Guess she figured you wouldn't notice. My stomach clenched. That card was linked to our joint LLC. It paid for invoices, design tools, client dinners, things we built together. And now she'd used it to bankroll her affair. She hadn't just lied. She had invested in the betrayal. Alan handed me a small USB. All the digital files are here. Photos, videos, itemized receipts. Call if you need more. I thanked him, though I'm not sure why. Thanking someone for showing you how your world collapsed feels misplaced. But he nodded and walked out without another word. I sat alone for a long time after that, staring at the envelope like it might catch fire and take the memories with it. That night, I didn't confront Brenda. I didn't say a word. She was already asleep when I got home, or pretending to be. Her phone was face down on the nightstand, screen dark. I stood in the doorway for a long time just watching her breathe, trying to find even a trace of the woman I used to love. But all I saw was a stranger borrowing her face. I slept in the guest room, my chest hollow, my hands still shaking. In the days that followed, I moved quietly. I backed up our shared finances, downloaded bank statements, changed my personal passwords, and revoked her access to our cloud storage. I called my attorney, a guy named Tom who'd helped my brother with a messy custody case, and scheduled a consultation. You don't want to tip your hand too early, Tom said over the phone. If she's been hiding things this long, odds are she's hiding more. I believed him. Brenda was meticulous. That was one of the things I used to admire about her. Her eye for detail, her precision. Turns out that kind of SK** set is just as useful in deception as it is in design. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning an exit. I'd spent years building something stable, trustworthy, real. And now I was tearing it down piece by piece. Not out of anger, but out of necessity. Because once you see the truth, you can't go back to pretending. And pretending is what she'd been doing for months. The morning she left for her so-called work conference in Chicago, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "I'll call you when I land." I nodded. She didn't notice I hadn't packed her charger like I usually do. Didn't notice that I watched her walk away not with longing, but with finality. I wasn't going to follow her this time. I already knew where she was going. When she left for the conference, I waited by the window. Brenda's black carry-on rattled against the sidewalk as she wheeled it to the curb. Her driver pulled up a minute later. She didn't see me. She didn't look back. She never did. I stood there long after she'd driven off. Not angry, not devastated, just still. Everything inside me had burned out by then. I wasn't chasing answers anymore. I had them. I wasn't begging for honesty. I had proof. What I needed now wasn't confrontation, it was control. And silence was my sharpest tool. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I stopped reacting and started acting. I had already removed her access to our shared financial accounts. That was step one. Nothing aggressive. Just a quiet sweep of our credit cards, savings, business resources. The family business was in my name. Brenda joined later as a co-partner, but the paperwork was airtight, and my lawyer confirmed she'd signed off on that distinction when we filed the LLC. She'd get nothing she didn't fight for. And now, she didn't even know there was a fight coming. Step 2 was canceling our upcoming trips. One of them, a long weekend wine tasting tour in Oregon, had been her idea, though I suspected now it was just a cover. I logged into the travel portal and refunded everything. She'd get the notification eventually. Let her think it was a glitch. Step 3 was gathering every piece of evidence Alan had collected. I scanned it all, neatly organized it into digital folders labeled by date. I didn't want revenge. I wanted leverage. There was a difference. Revenge was emotional. Leverage was surgical, tactical, necessary. Then I called Tom, my attorney, and sent him everything. He didn't say much on the phone, just cleared his throat and said, "Let's make this clean. You're sitting on dynamite." 2 days later, Brenda texted me from Chicago. "Landed. Exhausted. We'll call after dinner. Love you." I stared at the words. Love you. Like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't stepped out of our life and into someone else's arms on the company dime. Like she wasn't staying in the same boutique hotel from the photos, room 406, if Alan was right. I didn't respond. She called later that night. I didn't pick up. She tried again the next morning. Left a voicemail saying the Wi-Fi was spotty, that the conference sessions were draining, that she missed me. I still said nothing. And that silence? That did more damage than any screaming ever could. People like Brenda, they know how to manage emotion. They're fluent in apologies, fluent in justifications. They come prepared for anger. They rehearse for confrontation. But silence? Silence makes them nervous. It gives them no foothold, no script. By the third day, her messages had shifted. "Everything okay? I haven't heard from you. I'm starting to worry. Did I do something?" I wanted to laugh at that last one, but I didn't. Instead, I waited, because I knew what was coming. Her flight back was scheduled for Sunday afternoon. I didn't cancel it. I didn't text her. I didn't even leave the house that morning. I wanted her to walk into a reality she hadn't prepared for. Only she never got that far, because I had one more move left. She arrived at the airport, checked her bag, stood in line at the gate, and, according to Alan, who had someone posted nearby, was denied boarding. Not because of security, not because of weather, because the ticket had been voided. The airline app showed it had been canceled by cardholder. And as she stood there, confused, scrolling through her phone to figure out why, Alan's contact captured the moment she turned around, panic in her eyes, and called out a name. Not my name, Kyle's. That slip, that single unconscious cry for someone else was all I needed. She wasn't stranded because of the canceled ticket. She was stranded because she'd revealed everything, in public, to strangers with one name, one reflex. That was when I walked away from the terminal. I'd gone there myself, not to confront her, but to observe. I stayed back, out of sight, behind the glass by the baggage claim rotunda. Watching her flail in real time was like watching a storm try to rearrange itself after landfall. She stood frozen at the gate, checking her phone, looking around like someone who just realized they'd walked into the wrong movie halfway through. Her heels clicked across the linoleum as she backtracked toward the ticket counter, fumbling for answers. I didn't wait to see how it ended. I turned and left, got in my car, drove off. There was no satisfaction in it, just confirmation. Confirmation that the woman I once trusted to protect my heart couldn't even protect her own lie for 5 straight days. And now she was scrambling. The fallout came quick. The next morning, she flew home on her own dime. I wasn't there. I had the locks rekeyed while she was gone. Her keycard didn't work. She called me from the porch first once, then again, then 5 times. Left 3 voicemails. I didn't pick up. She pounded on the door, rang the bell, then sat on the steps for almost an hour. Alan's contact caught that too, photo and timestamped. Eventually she left. Probably to her sister's. Maybe to Kyle's. I didn't care. Later that night I got a string of texts. I'm home. What's going on? Why did my key stop working? Are you okay? This isn't funny. Nathan, you're scaring me. Please talk to me. Please. No. She wanted me to break the silence. But silence wasn't a punishment. It was a boundary. One she'd never seen before because I'd never drawn it. Until now. The next day, Tom sent the formal papers to her email, certified copy in the mail, and a notification via text. The subject line was sterile. The body was simple. Attached were the divorce documents and a full itemized breakdown of our assets with annotations for the judge. Attached below it? The folder labeled Infidelity Evidence Verified. She had the right to respond. But I knew she wouldn't. Not immediately. Not while she was still spinning. And she was spinning. How do I know? Because the very next night, Brenda posted a filtered selfie to her Instagram story, a plate of food at some rooftop bar with the caption, "Work hard. Stay grounded. Appreciate the real ones." It was gone by morning. Someone ***ed it and sent it to me anyway. Real ones, huh? Interesting choice of words for someone who just lost her marriage, her dignity, and soon, her job. You see, the family business wasn't just a side project. It was her title, her primary income. And when I froze her access and notified our clients of a change in management, some of them started asking questions. One of them even emailed me a ***T from Kyle's personal account, a dinner receipt from our client lunch budget. They'd been brazen, sloppy, and I wasn't covering for her anymore. By the time Monday rolled around, the firm she contracted for caught wind. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The pictures did the work. So did the expense trail. And by the end of the week, Brenda was out of a job. Not fired, technically. Contract not renewed. Professional fallout doesn't always explode, it just evaporates. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and the knowledge that I had chosen silence, and silence had done more damage than any scream ever could. I never planned to humiliate her. That wasn't the goal. Even when I was at my lowest, when I was holding Alan's photos in my shaking hands, when I couldn't sleep through the night without grinding my teeth, I never wanted Brenda to be destroyed. I wanted her to understand what she'd done. I wanted her to feel it. But I didn't want to watch her unravel. Turns out I didn't have to orchestrate anything. She did it herself. The meltdown happened on a Thursday. I was in my lawyer's office reviewing a draft of the asset disclosure forms when Tom got a ping on his phone. He glanced at it, then raised an eyebrow. Is your wife, sorry, soon-to-be ex, wearing a blue blazer and screaming at airport staff right now? I blinked. What? He rotated his phone toward me. A TikTok video. Low quality. Wobbly camera. But unmistakably her. Brenda. Red-faced. Crying. Arms flailing at a gate agent at SeaTac Airport, demanding to speak to someone in charge, shouting that she had an active ticket and that this is harassment. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Couldn't be her. But then she dropped the line. My name is Brenda Morgan. My husband paid for this ticket, this is theft. That was the moment I knew, yep, it was her. Someone behind the camera let out a low whistle. The caption read, "Cheating wife flips out when her canceled trip gets exposed. Husband left her stranded." I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't even told anyone outside of close friends what was happening. But the internet is a wildfire. By the time I got home that evening, the video had already been mirrored to Twitter, Instagram Reels, and 3 meme pages. One clip had racked up 1.8 million views. The top comment? Sis thought she could double dip and double book. I wish I could say I felt something: guilt, shame, satisfaction, but I didn't. Not really. Just numb curiosity. She tried to get ahead of it, of course. That night she called. Then texted. Then emailed. No apology, no real ownership, just panic. I don't know who recorded that, but it's out of context. Can we please talk about this like adults? You don't understand what's happening. No, Brenda. You don't understand what's already happened. The following morning, things escalated fast. Her business email was suspended by noon. Her architecture firm, where she'd been contracted as a lead on 2 major projects, announced a temporary reassignment of duties on LinkedIn. Translation: they were distancing themselves as fast as they could. A local gossip blog picked up the story under the headline, "Seattle power couple splits after alleged affair, airport incident goes viral." I wasn't quoted. I hadn't said a word publicly. Still haven't. But someone at her firm must have leaked it. Maybe a coworker who'd been passed over for promotion. Maybe Kyle's jealous ex didn't matter. Once the story broke, the internet filled in the rest. People went digging. Found our old couple's podcast appearance from a year ago, balancing love and business. Found photos of us at award galas, community events, charity fundraisers. Found the business account we shared and started connecting dots. I logged out of all my social accounts that weekend. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to read strangers' takes on my marriage like it was an episode of The Bachelor. But even offline, I couldn't escape the fallout. Clients pulled out of Brenda's upcoming side projects. A housing developer that had hired her as a consultant issued a formal statement cutting ties, citing ethical conflicts. And Kyle? Gone. He didn't show up to work the Monday after the video. Didn't respond to emails, according to a mutual contact. His LinkedIn quietly went dark. Word was his wife, didn't know about her until then, had kicked him out that weekend. One message. That's all he sent Brenda, according to her accidental email reply to me a few days later. Just one line. "I can't be part of this. Don't contact me again." Poetic in a way. He vanished as easily as he entered. And Brenda? Brenda began to implode. I heard from her sister first. A voicemail. Choppy, nervous, hesitant. "Hey Nathan. I know this is awkward, but Brenda's not doing well. She's kind of falling apart. Mom moved in to help out. I thought maybe you could check in. Not reconcile, just... I don't know. She won't eat. She's barely speaking." I didn't return the call. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I had nothing left to give. She made choices. So did I. And now she was sitting in the rubble. For weeks, I didn't hear anything directly from her. The silence was thick, buzzing, almost surreal. Then one day, I got a handwritten letter. No envelope. Just folded neatly and tucked inside the mailbox. My name in her handwriting on the front. I almost didn't open it. But I did. It said, "Nathan, I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know if you'd let me try." I didn't realize how far I'd gone until everything started falling apart. I thought I could manage it, split my life in 2 and keep both halves happy. But I couldn't. I wasn't strong enough. I hurt you. And now I'm watching everything I built disappear. Mom blames me every day. She won't stop reminding me how much I ruined. Kyle's gone. My firm doesn't return my calls. And everyone I used to know looks at me like I'm a walking scar. But losing you? That's the part one can't bury. That's the part that hits me at night when I hear the silence echo off the walls. I'm sorry, not just for the cheating, but for turning you into a stranger. I miss the man who used to hum while folding laundry. I miss the way you looked at me when you thought I wasn't watching. I miss the way you never gave up on us even when I already had. I know it's too late, but I had to say it. Brenda. I folded the letter and set it aside. Didn't cry. Didn't get angry. Didn't feel much of anything at all. That letter came 2 weeks ago. I haven't responded. I won't. Some things don't need answers. Some endings are meant to stay closed. Last I heard, Brenda was interviewing for freelance gigs, leaning on favors and calling in old contacts. But word travels fast in a city like ours. Especially when you've built a reputation on being the face of integrity, only to watch that face get broadcast mid-breakdown across half the internet. I didn't expose her. She exposed herself. The world simply watched. And I watched her fade. Not with bitterness. Just with distance. And that distance, I've learned, is peace.